Good evening and welcome to the second programme in this series, and a unique occasion in the history of this show as Ian Hislop is in the lead. In the news this week, after some confusion over where the French end of the Channel Tunnel is due to emerge, crack SAS troops are brought in to find it. After a month-long advertising campaign, the Daily Star announced they've succeeded in attracting a more upmarket type of reader. And in Worcestershire, the world record is broken for the longest ever wait for directory inquiries. On Ian's team, a man who, at the age of 16, represented Britain at tennis and through beating an opponent became one of the top-ranking players in the country. Since then, he's fulfilled the potential people saw in him by becoming a comedian, Tony Hawks. And on Paul's side, a guest whose track record on this programme is such that William Hills actually quoted odds of 3 to 1 that he wouldn't turn up tonight. So he's come hot foot from the betting shop, clutching several briefcases, Roy Hattersley. And so we attempt to find it in our hearts to welcome round one, our weekly mishmash of top news stories. Ian and Tony, a quick diagnosis, if you would.
Right, looks like a computer. Oh, a bit of an injury. This is to do with those virtual reality sex games you can get. And that's some of the wrist injuries that you can pick up if you watch too many.
It's repetitive strain injury, which people get when they've been on in jobs too long. Like the Prime Minister. No, and then it went to court, and the judge suddenly became a medical expert and said there's no such thing as RSI, it doesn't exist. So he threw his case out.
Presumably the man that was holding his cape at the back had a case of RSI as well.
The judge is known as Judge Prosser. It's rather amusing for those of us who like rhyming slang.
Yes, it is. Judge John Prosser, who earlier this year ordered a rapist to pay his victim £500 for a good holiday, and has now decreed that RSI, repetitive strain injury, does not exist. One Loughborough University scientist said there has been an incredible knee-jerk reaction to the judgment. A quick knee-jerk reaction to the judge might have been more in order. RSI mainly affects anyone whose job involves repetitive wrist movement, and is said to be particularly common in typists, musicians, and third-formers. Doctors say that it wears out the soft tissues. Yes, must get through several boxes of them. Paul and Roy, a question close to your conscience.
Look at that wrist movement.
Pay rise, isn't it, amongst MPs?
It's all the money we're getting. It's what we all stayed up for on Wednesday night, to make sure we got another £2,000 a year, and worth every penny of it.
So you voted for it, did you, Roy?
I wasn't there. I didn't turn up, actually.
So you're getting what? 5% over the next 2 years?
No, you can call it 5% over the next 2 years. Or you can call it 4.97% over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you could call it rather more than the rest of the public sector, couldn't you?
Or since it's £32,000 a year, you could call it less than anybody else on this panel earns.
Quite right, too.
Well, I'd quite like to pitch in with an objection to that one, I think.
But that's only part of your income, Roy, isn't there?
It's like
There's the Guardian and half.
But that's only a half.
Half, sorry.
Come on.
You know when you didn't turn up last time?
Where?
Here.
But I thought to be here before.
Yeah, you never guessed what we did. Did you hear about it?
It was a terrible disappointment to me, because I thought they were going to get a great barrel with staves.
Well, you're here now, anyway.
Yes, several hours ago, you may remember I asked a question. It is the Commons debate in which MPs voted on how large a salary increase should be given to MPs, rather like allowing George Best to pour his own drink. Max Madden, Labour MP for Bradford West, said any increase should be limited to those MPs with no outside financial interests, or the Labour Party as they're known. Or perhaps not, Roy. Ian and Tony, another bargain winter sale for you.
Houses of Parliament.
It's not the pay rise again, is it?
Sitting up late.
Oh, there's British Rail after it's privatised.
Someone trying to strangle Ian McGregor. Well, it's to do with them sitting up in Parliament last night or whatever about this privatising the railways bill.
It's a silly bill that they haven't done a U-turn on. Roy knows
The
all this,
Lords.
don't you? And the Lords.
The Lords wouldn't let it through, and then
They stayed up
put
all
it
night
back
and then went home.
Put it back, and it went back again, and then.
Yes,
I didn't
yes.
realise
sounded-
it was such a political programme.
No.
It's always like this.
Well,
all
I've
the
done,
politics
I've
and
done my best to try and steer it away from all that. I'm quite happy to come on and play the spoon.
stuff. And absolutely. Much more interesting all this political
Yeah,
stuff.
we did
You
not
know.
care about all that privatised. Who gives
Well,
a monkeys?
You may well have to play the spoons by the end of the evening because the government quashed a rebellion on its own backbenches by making sure rebels couldn't attend the vote. One MP was sent to Peru so he wouldn't get back to London for a week. BR Day return to Manchester would have done that. Paul and Roy, what little domestic tiff is this?
Oh, they're making a soap advert.
Yes,
It's
yes,
fathers
yes.
who aren't there. They are there on the screen, but they aren't there in reality.
That's
so
right, yeah. Child maintenance, they sort of said, well, missing fathers must pay for their families' support and stuff, but because the fathers were missing, they couldn't find them, and so the fathers they have found have made them pay 4 times the amount.
to make up for
the
those
people
who
they
are
can't
missing.
find.
That's right.
And they end up paying more than they actually earn, these fathers.
It's a staggering answer because it's completely right.
Well, don't hide your disappointment, is it?
I can't, I'm afraid it's
It's
genuine.
a new look you've got, isn't it?
Are you referring to the jacket or the tie?
Is that a tie or a jumper? I can't...
It used to be a jumper, I think.
Oh, it used to be a jumper.
And then it became a tie, magically. Talking rubbish now.
You're wearing rubbish.
It is that rare beast, a government U-turn, which is about to remove powers from the Child Support Agency to penalise absent fathers. So effectively, John Major has now abandoned his own brainchild. Wonder if the agency can get him for that. Since the CSA was set up, maintenance payments
Do we have to
jumped.
listen to all this rubbish? I've answered the question. What's
No.
all you turn it into a mini-series or something? Maintenance payments, the movie.
You can sleep through these bits like you
And what's
normally
this
do.
stuff about John Major's brainchild? That's a contradiction in terms.
Well, what was I talking about? Oh, yes, the answer.
Yes, the answer which we've already given you, and you're now repeating.
Since the CSA was set up, maintenance payments...
We don't care!
He's not interested, are you?
Has anyone got a couple of spoons on it?
Could be more entertaining.
Where were you?
I was here, Roy. Where were you? The agency has been attacked for failing in its intended aim of tracing
If
runaway
this goes
fathers.
on much longer, this programme will be going out live.
But
You
it
see
is,
people saying, oh, let's
Paul.
switch BBC Two on. There's all that income support stuff that I want to hear about.
The agency has been attacked for...
Are you
it's a bell
entering
for
this
this
speech
one.
for the Booker Prize?
I'm beginning to realise why I didn't turn up.
It was a lot easier with the tub of lard sitting there. Didn't interrupt for once. The agency has been attacked.
Oh, dear.
No, I can't bring myself to do it. And at the end of that opening skirmish, the familiar and comforting news is that both teams are boasting a full quotient, with Ian and Tony and Paul and Roy sharing a joint 4. And so to the baffling phenomenon that is round 2, for literally absurd headlines from the seedy side of Fleet Street. Paul, what bestial nonsense is this? Sobering news for hamsters.
Oh, this is an experiment they did. They got a load of hamsters drunk, took them around all the sort of fashionable night spots, got them very drunk, and then they gave them this sort of, I think it's a sort of Chinese herb or something, which immediately gives you non-pissed hamster. You give it to the hamster, and it immediately stops singing rugby songs and expressing a desire to go for an Indian meal. And you think it might work on humans? Because
Yes.
hamsters are prone to alcoholic abuse because they've got these huge cheek pouches, which means they can carry back lots of beer from the off licence.
Yes, it is. It's the experiments into alcoholism going on at Harvard with the aid of some Syrian golden hamsters whose tastes are all the more remarkable considering that they're offered simply a mixture of pure ethanol with water, whereas most hamsters, of course, prefer it with bitter lemon. The scientists at Harvard University say they've been searching for some years to find spontaneous drinkers. If they'd been at Glasgow University, they wouldn't have had much trouble. Still not a bad life for a hamster, though. I mean, if it's either that or being owned by Richard Gere. Roy, a criminal tale.
That's about 350 grand, I reckon.
That's a lot to pay for a hamster.
Depends what it does.
Roy, a criminal tale for you. Thieves put spoke in wheels.
This is a new sort of bicycle thief who stopped cutting the chains and taking the bicycles away. He's actually gone around mending the bicycles. This appeared in the Tooting Gazette on Monday morning, on page 7.
Well, it's going to be
Just above the advert for the Taj Mahal Indian restaurant.
And a warning that hamsters were not going to be welcome this coming weekend.
It is one of the most precise answers we've ever been given on this programme, and it may well be true, but it's not actually the answer that I've got written down in front of me. Any idea over here?
I think Roy was right, because I got the Tooting Gazette that week as well.
Well,
I've often thought the Tooting Gazette was scandalous and neglected on this programme.
Yes, well, now it's getting a hell of a plug, isn't it? It is, I'll tell you what it is, it's a new public transport scheme in Cambridge.
It's the bicycles, isn't it? They've given them free bicycles and they're painting them green.
And they're all pinched in a week.
That's right. The idea was anybody who wanted a bike, because there was lots of bikes being stolen, so the council got hold of a load of old bikes, painted them green, and they left them around Cambridge and said, if you want a bike, have your ride, and then leave the bike somewhere, and then we'll come and pick it up.
I remember reading about it in the Tooting Gazette.
The reasoning behind the plan was that it would reduce cycle theft. Well, it certainly succeeded. There aren't any left to steal. Councillor Jackie Galway defended the scheme, saying even if it doesn't work, we have still got more racks and signs to put information on. Yes, such as, sorry, no bikes. Tony, an everyday problem for you. Premature ejection.
Yes, this is an article about appalling spelling at schools. I think I know what it is. It's about a US pilot who was flying over Turkey on the way to Iran, I think. And he sort of pressed for the air hostess for some tea or something. And he pressed the ejection button instead. And it all went horribly wrong for him.
Yes, it is the sad case of Lieutenant Colonel Don Snellgrove, was his name, of the US Air Force, who crashed his £12 million jet as a result of trying to fly the plane and have a pee at the same time. The official procedure for desperate pilots, which Snellgrove was attempting to follow, is to urinate into a sponge. It's not clear whether that's homemade or one of Mr. Kimpling's. Snellgrove parachuted to safety with his trousers still awry, and his navigator followed suit. Considering their state of undress, it makes you wonder about the phrase "Roger and out." Ian, graphic image for you. Saddam smears Charles.
This was a retaliatory strike by Saddam, because Charles made one of his many speeches, and they said that Hussein is not really a very nice bloke. Which is very controversial, obviously. Anyway, Saddam read this, because he gets the Telegraph.
I thought it was in a Tooting Gazette.
No, that's right. Anyway, Saddam made a speech attacking Charles, saying, I won't be lectured on morality by a man who commits adultery. Which is an interesting bit of moral relativism. I mean, equating rogering Camilla Parker Bowles with gassing the Kurds. Anyway, so Saddam's had a go at a member of the royal family, which is our job. Bastard.
It's the news that Saddam Hussein's son, Uday, writing in an Iraqi newspaper, has launched a scathing attack on the personal morality of Prince Charles. The article claimed that Prince Charles is a notorious playboy, well known in whorehouses throughout Europe, but only the ones with nice Gothic arches and Georgian pillars.
I think he meant warehouses, didn't he?
In 1989, Saddam's son spent several weeks in jail after clubbing to death in a drunken frenzy his father's favourite valet. Several weeks. Why so long? I always wondered what it would take to make Robert Maxwell look like a nice guy to have running your paper, and a day seems to be it. Which,
You know, it's 2 years today since Maxwell went overboard.
You look rather upset by that.
I am. I know a lot of people think of November the 5th as Guy Fawkes night, but I think of it as Maxwell Drown night. So if you want to join me in a little celebration later, I'll be running my bath.
Well, I wouldn't mind if...
which insane ramblings mark the end of this particular round, and the near entertaining situation is that Paul and Roy are beginning to struggle with 7, whilst Ian and Tony are strolling on with 8. And so it's time to give way to the dubious pleasure of entering our odd one out round for Happy Songbirds, which is the George Michael. Paul, consider these: Mikhail Gorbachev, Robert De Niro, Stephen Norris, MP, and Boy George.
They've all been considered for the lead role in Bagpuss the movie. Is it paternity suits or something? Somebody said recently accused Gorbachev of fathering her child. De Niro, I think, had the same story. Boy George has just rather implausibly been accused of the same thing. And Stephen Norris, MP... Hasn't.
Yes, it is Stephen Norris, MP, who's the only one not to be accused of fathering a love child, despite having at least 5 mistresses exposed by the press. Peter Ashton, the chairman of Norris's local Conservative Party, said his personal life is his own. On the contrary, it seems to involve almost everyone he meets. Boy George this week has been accused of fathering an American child, although the singer claims that he's not had penetrative sex since leaving school. Strange thing to do on your way home from school. Roy, 4 Lords a-leaping for you. Lord Renton, Lord Buckethead, Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector, and Lord Help Us, John Major.
Something to do with Huntington, but I don't know what, because Renton, the only thing we know about Renton, I know about Renton, is Remember Huntington. And John Major has a Huntington connection. I think Cromwell came from Huntington, and Lord Buckethead didn't.
Yes, 2 excellent points. Well done. It's Lord Buckethead who, in spite of fighting the seat, is the only one not to be elected MP for Huntington.
It's not really a bucket, it's more of a pipe, isn't it?
Did Lord Buckethead stand against John Major?
Yes, he did.
And they elected John Major.
Oliver Cromwell was MP for Huntington, and even today there are Cromwell Arms, Cromwell Inns, and so on all over the town, although interestingly no king's heads. A Guardian journalist on a visit there recently said the only picture of John Major was in the window of an Indian restaurant, presumably as an illustration of what a sag prawn looks like. Tony, 4 variations on a theme for you. Claire Rayner, Francois the fish, Sammy Davis Jr. and Gordon Banks.
Oh, dead easy. I've got a bit of a theory that this is to do with wings. Because that fish appears to have wings of some description, and Claire Rayner's involved with a commercial to do with wings. And Sammy Davis Jr. is a tap dancer, and you can wing it when you're tap dancing. And Gordon Banks is the odd one out because he played in goal and not on the wing.
Pouring Robert. Pouring Robert.
I think that's one of the worst answers I've ever heard.
Gordon Banks, because of a car crash, has now only one good eye. Sammy Davis Jr. had only one eye. We can assume that fish has only got one eye.
Why? There should be one on the other side. How do you know?
We don't know that. How can we judge?
Well, hang on, you don't know that Gordon Banks hasn't got one round the other side of there, either.
Be handy for corner kick.
Wouldn't it?
So Claire Rayner's the odd one out because she is duo-optical.
Yes, I'm prepared to...
Duo-optical?
It is Claire Rayner, as all the others, wear glass eyes, whereas she merely collects them. Zoologists at Liège University are claiming a first after fitting a tropical fish with a glass eye. Asked why, they replied, fish can't wear glasses because they have no ears. Nothing gets past these Belgians, does it? Former England goalkeeper Gordon Banks, who wears a glass eye, was recently banned from receiving cup final tickets, but then a pile of them was discovered under a paperweight on his desk. He said he was just keeping an eye on them for a friend. And finally in this round, Ian, for formerly influential prime ministers, now consigned to the dustbin of history. Edward Heath, Lloyd George, Harold Wilson, and John Major.
Looks like he's about to do a song there, doesn't he, old John Major?
What kind of fool am I? This is another sex question, or rather a sex allegation question. Lloyd George was well known to know a lot of people's fathers.
Was this boy George his son?
Hurry up with who the odd one out is, because it's obviously Edward Heath, isn't it?
What, because there was no suggestion of any impropriety?
Well, yeah, no one was interested.
So everyone apart from Edward Heath has been sort of subject of allegations of having sexual relations with an employee of theirs.
And that's us, we're done.
Yeah.
With an employee?
John Major's the only one with the sun in his eyes.
That's another excellent...
Lloyd George is the last one to resist the move to colour photography.
I'll give Paul a couple of marks. I think he did get it right. The answer is that all of them have received damages over allegations that they had a mistress, except Ted Heath, who is, of course, both single and a keen sailor. Which constituent parts hold the end of another odd one for this week, and the story so far is that, well, Ian and Tony look to be down and out with 9, while Paul and Roy are up where they belong with 15. And so we spring eternal into our final missing words round. 2 swatches of sensational headlines, each with an offending part tastefully removed. Guess the part, or parts, and the points are literally in the bag. For added confusion this week, we've decided to throw in a couple of headlines from Wild About Animals magazine, just for the sheer joy of it. So, Ian and Tony, you're currently flailing at the moment, so you get to start with Lamont has new what?
Off licence?
Kid on the block.
New idea about how the economy was going right all along.
All right.
It is in fact Shiner, a new Shiner.
All right.
What delayed until 2005?
Next year.
High-speed link.
High-speed link.
Recovery.
Premature ejection.
High-speed link.
That'd be delayed ejection.
I'll give you 1 for that. Tunnel link is in fact the answer. Next, Diana wants a what?
Good talking to.
Is the polite answer. No.
Chat show.
Good seeing to.
I don't know. That's the rude answer.
Wants a new detective. She wants a role.
I thought that's what you meant. No, a reconciliation is in fact the,
What rubbish.
is the answer. Next, Queens move in on what?
Earl's Court.
Chessboard.
Jason Donovan.
No, that's plainly not true, is it?
No. I am sorry, I meant to say Elton John. My tongue just...
I don't think you did, if you want to stay this side of £250,000. Queens
No,
move...
that was about his bulimia. Very, which he doesn't have.
No.
And very silly of the Mirror to say so. Cost them £350,000. You see, bulimia does exist as a disease. RSI if you sue your employer, because you've got a bad back. You get absolute bugger all, because the judge doesn't believe you. If you're Elton John, you get 350 grand.
I don't understand the problem with
bugger
bulimia.
all.
You eat, you vomit, you eat again. I mean, it sounds like a good life to me.
Yes. Do you want to know the answer to this question?
No.
Really. I'll tell you what it is. Queens move in on kittens. There we are. That's from Wild About Animals for you.
Is it a magazine that you get weekly, Angus, this one, Wild About Animals?
Not weekly, no, because it comes out every fortnight.
Does it?
Still gives you repetitive strain injuries, doesn't it?
Depends which animals are in that week.
Do they have pin-ups? Like a sort of cheeky little cocker spaniel. You can take me for a walk any day.
And lastly, Major promises fresh what?
Air.
Is not true.
Halibut, skate. Are we still in the animal mag?
No, we've moved out of
Initiative.
that. Initiative, Ulster Initiative, in fact, the answer, but as you're behind, I'll give you a couple. Right, thank you. Paul and Roy, here are your teasers. Disused power station by the Thames could be turned into what?
A rabbit.
Extension to Tate Gallery.
Yes, I'll give you the Tate Gallery.
We turned
modern
into a
art.
power station, couldn't it? Be new.
False teeth depot, something like that.
Privatised train.
Interesting idea, people trying to guess it after they got the right answer. Next, who tend to have different bills?
Puffins and sparrows. It sounds like a gentleman's outfitters, doesn't it? Puffins and sparrows, waistcoats to the gentry.
A bit like it. Yeah.
It's different sort of phone consumers, Mercury and British Telecom. They get different sort of bills because one's Mercury and one's British Telecom.
It's a good answer. You were closer with the first one because it's actually oyster catchers. Next, winner. Yes, I found what?
Underpants.
Yes, I've found my own true love. It's myself.
New love is in fact the rather.
It's funny how he finds a new love every time he's got a film coming out.
Is that libelous?
No.
Oh.
Trust me.
Well, in that case, yes, it is funny how that always happens. Next, Rifkin fends off what?
Brazilian transsexual. You met him at a party, you won't leave him alone.
This is not unless you know something about
Virginia
Kenneth Clark,
Bottomley?
right?
Defence cuts.
Yes, defence cuts was the nearest. Clark Axe is in fact the answer.
It's not
And
very
finally,
near defence cuts, is it?
not really, no. I'll take Edward up the what?
Junction.
Khyber.
Job centre.
Bridle path.
Arsenal.
Were you sneezing? or-
Yes, I was.
Oh, right. Astonishingly, yes, bridle path is precisely the right answer.
Right.
Which suggestive behaviour
I think he
brings...
was a horse.
Was that? Which suggestive
He might end
behaviour...
up as a pin-up in Wild About Animals.
Which odd behaviour brings us to the undignified conclusion of not just this quick-fire round, but also the whole shooting match. And the tragic outcome is that this week's utter nightmares are Ian and Tony with 13, and this week's absolute dreams are Paul and Roy with 21. So a bunch of flowers to our winners, a bunch of fives to our losers. And I leave you with news that East End police cells are full tonight after a riot at the Gary Bushell lookalike contest. Rush hour commuters adjust to the first day of British Rail's new autumn schedules. And finally, after Ken Livingstone wins London's top newt breeding prize, competitors allege that his entry may have been bred using steroids. Good night.